hear me?
No.
Damn it. Can you all hear me now? Joel?
Try now.
Can you hear me?
No.
How about now?
It's a little better.
Joel? Oh, ooh. Here we go. All right. Now can you hear me? I know what you're thinking. I'm your father. But I'm not your father. I'm just your deacon. And you might also be thinking, it must be really dark in there. And you're right. It is. But the good news, I was born in the darkness. And as much as I would love to just sit here and make impersonations of all these different people, the real reason I'm here is to ask you one question. Do you feel in charge? And that's not even really the case. So, but I am here as your SGA representative to kind of talk to you about our role within the House, your role as contributing members to the House. And so I'm very grateful that you are all here. You have made the first move. You have responded to the call to be here. And your bishops have deemed it that you come here to the Mount, to a place of great tradition. It is a tradition laid by the men who came here before you. And as Robbie kind of said, that tradition is first and foremost rooted in prayer. That's the reason why you're first and foremost here, is to root yourself in prayer. But the other aspect of the seminary is that it is a house of formation. So you have come here to be formed, to be conformed to the person of Jesus Christ. And you guys are all from different backgrounds. You're different ages. You're from all over the country, all over the Northeast. And you all have significantly different personalities, in case you didn't know that. And you're all here together in this house to grow in your formation, to grow in your masculinity, to grow in your identity. And part of that is your fraternity. There is formation that happens from our superiors through our formators. There is formation that happens liturgically. There is formation that happens intellectually through our classrooms, spiritually in the chapel, pastorally when you go out to your pastoral field educations for First Theology this year, maybe, God willing, in the spring, maybe, hopefully. And then for everybody else, when things open back up. But ultimately, there is another process of formation, and that is fraternal formation. Fraternal formation is one of those things that it happens naturally, but you have to avail yourself to it. You have to make yourself available, and you have to be very intentional about it. Because it's very easy to kind of lock yourself away, do whatever you want to do, and just, especially now with COVID, to kind of hide away. And that's not going to be beneficial for you. That's not going to be beneficial for the other men in the house. The reality is that the men in this house, every man needs the other man. And you may not like it, you may not agree with it, but the reality is that how many of you, have you ever heard of like polishing rocks? Who knows of polishing rocks? Anybody do that for a hobby? No hobbies? Yeah, okay, me neither. Don't worry. Good, so nobody can correct me on what I'm about to say. That's great. But in rock polishing, you basically get a box of a bunch of different rocks, and you put them into one big box, and you shake them up. And the one you want eventually gets polished. There's a polishing process. But inside of that box, what happens is all the rough edges get knocked off. And they don't get knocked off by the box, they get knocked off by the other rocks in there. Well, you guys are all a bunch of rocks. And you're rubbing up against each other, knocking off the weird edges, knocking off the hard edges, knocking off all of the edges in order that you can come out and be more polished. Probably not perfect, but it's close. We're a work in progress. So, but just keep that in mind as you go through here. Your brothers need you. They will help you grow in the areas where you need to grow. They'll help you grow in habits, develop relationships with guys here in your classes, but also the older men, especially as the newness wears off, as we kind of start to get into the grind of this next semester. There's going to come moments where you're going to struggle. There's going to come moments where it's going to be really difficult and you're going to be really frustrated with the guys in your class or with formation or whatever it is. Make sure you find the outlet. Make sure you identify some of the men that are in second, third, fourth theology, the men who have been here the longest, and be able to have open and honest conversations with them. Make sure you have open and honest conversations with your spiritual director, with your formation advisor. These are all the means by which you guys have, the avenues that you have to really release and kind of unload when those stressful times come. So make sure that you do that, but also make sure, like, just on a enjoyment level, everything's going to be a lot better as you create friendships. But at the same time, don't be worried about trying to be friends with everybody. There's 160 guys in this house. Your class has what, has 30 guys in it, roughly? You're not going to be friends with everybody in the house. You're not going to be friends with everybody in your classroom. But that's okay. And you shouldn't try to be, because you can be a really bad friend to a lot of people, or you can be a good friend to a smaller number. So be a good friend. Be respectful and understanding of everybody else. And if you ever have an issue with somebody else in the house, sit down and have lunch with that person. Sit down and learn their story. Because there's a guy standing up here next to me that I didn't necessarily get along with him when he first came. But we sat down.
And that was my fault.
It was not his fault. But we sat down and we had lunch together. And the more that we did that, the more that we grew in our relationship with each other, the more that we came to understand where each one came from, the closer we became, and I now consider Bud one of my close friends here in the seminary. So just be open to that. Be open to the formation that you need, and recognize that you're not perfect. Recognize that nobody in this house is perfect. It's going to make life a lot easier when you can be merciful with those brothers who you're living with here and now, to show mercy in the future to the people that you will be ministering to. So that's formation, fraternal formation. One more aspect in regards to that. There's a level of fraternal correction that will probably need to happen. Make sure you always do that in charity. Make sure you always do that after you have prayed for the person that you think you need to correct. Because you might just realize when you go to prayer that it's actually you who needs to be corrected. That it's your way of thinking that needs to change. And Christ will reveal that to you. It is a great blessing that he forms us in ways that we never expect. All right? So the role of the SGA. We are liaisons. We are voices on behalf of the community. That is our role. So each class has a class president. Each class elects that class president. For the pre-theologians, you actually don't have a class president, so I kind of already lied to you. Sorry. You are with second pre-theology, and you have one class president just because you're brand new. You don't really know how things are supposed to happen. So yeah, just kind of go with the flow, but recognize that president is your voice to the rector, your voice to formation, your voice of, if you have questions, concerns, problems, ideas for improvement. There's always things that can be improved across the seminary. So share those. Make sure you share those with your class president, with Mr. Budd, myself, or whoever gets elected come Tuesday, because we will do house elections. Since we didn't get to do them in the spring, we'll do them here on Tuesday. But yeah, we kind of control just the internal operations. We don't have any say on the rule of life. We don't have any say in regards to the rules that govern the house. But we do have some levity to be able to, we're the means by which you can express frustrations. We're the means by which you can express desire for change, and we do it by a means of meeting with the rector. And it's a formal process by which we go about trying to improve the health and goodness of the house. And so we, as an SGA, we meet monthly with all the house presidents and the executive members of the SGA, which is the president, the vice president, the secretary, and the treasurer. And part of our job as the SGA is also managing fraternal funds for the house. So if you didn't know this, I get to be the lucky one to surprise you, that there are dues. There's a $25 dues that you will pay, depending on what your class decides. They may ask for more, depending on fundraising for other things. But $25 basically goes to house social budget. And why? Because that's always kind of a struggle, I think, sometimes, as guys don't understand why. Because we want you to be invested in the fraternity of this house. We want you to be invested in coming down and being social with the other men in this house. So when you have a little bit of skin in the game, you'll show up for the events that you're like, you know what, I really don't want to go, but I'm going to go have a beer that I paid for. So, because you paid for it. So show up, enjoy a beer, enjoy some fraternity, come and join your brothers and grow in relationship with them. Help to be a part of their formation, help them be a part of your formation, and be open and be, ever diligent to just allow the Holy Spirit to work in your life, to transform your hearts, to knock off those rough edges that you're here to have knocked off. If there is ever anything that we can do for you, do not hesitate to stop by our rooms. We are happy to sit down and meet with you. Anything that you say to, at least to myself, whether I'm still in SGA or not come Tuesday, my room is always open, and you can always come to me, and I will not share anything that you share with me. That is not my job. I'm here to be a person that you can vent to, that, I will listen. I may not have any words of great advice or consolation, but remember, anytime you start venting, anytime you have that desire to complain, complain first to our Lord, because He's the one who brought you here. He's the one who has brought you into this great tradition, into this great fraternity, and if you allow it, God will allow this community to transform your life to be more and more like Him. So thank you for being here. Thank you, and may the force be with you.